All right, and welcome on my next guest, four-time NFL Pro Bowl linebacker, Ken Harvey. Ken, how's everything going for you?
Everything's going well. Everything's going well. Crazy, crazy world
Yeah.
we're in right now, but things are going well.
What have you been doing with all your added free time?
You know what? I write, or at least
Oh, cool.
I've been writing. So I've written a bunch of children's books. I'm writing a new one now.
Oh, cool.
Some screenplays, and just trying to occupy some time.
Yeah. How did you get into that? That's really interesting.
You know what? A long time ago, and a lot of people have heard this story, but a long time ago when I was playing football, I wrote a story for my boys, a children's book.
Oh, cool.
And the artist was Terry Crews.
Really?
Yeah, who
That's
played
awesome.
on the same team as me. And
That's
so
awesome.
he did all the artwork. We put together a book, and that was kind of the start of me writing books. And then from there, it's just kind of, see what you can do. And
That's
so,
awesome.
just doing different things.
It's kind of just like setting the standard for other parents that can't write. They're like, hey, like. So.
It's not so much like, I think for me, and for everybody, it's every parent can write a book. And if it's just for your child, the child wants more than anything that you spend the time with them reading.
Definitely.
And that's kind of the big thing. The book, it's kind of sad in a way, but the book actually started because, my two boys, when they were 6 and 4, the oldest was asking about, all these questions about how to get his skin light and all this stuff. And I was like, why? And he's like, there's a contest on TV, and if you win, you get to be one of the characters, but there were no brown characters. And so for me as a parent, I just wanted my kids to see themselves as a character in the book, but I wanted any other kid to see themselves as the same character. So the story's simple. Every kid plays hide and seek, but it was my kids in the picture. So my kids would see themselves, but any other kid would say, that's me playing hide and seek. And that was kind of the goal of the story.
That's interesting. That's really interesting. And then, so what have been your response to, with all the craziness of the pandemic that's going on? The only thing that's really given me hope over these past few months is all of the people kind of speaking out. What have you been of everything? Although I love seeing everything in every city, I want to see change in Congress and in DC where we can make instrumental changes, because a lot of people's talk is cheap, and you can change a lot of names. That we need some real progress to start, and it's gonna be a long process. But what have you been seeing that's been giving you hope?
Well, it is. I actually, I'm a co-captain of this congressional football game. So we have about 30 Congress members who play against the Capitol Hill Police on a game of flag football.
Oh, cool.
It's Democrats and Republicans on the same team. So there is hope that they're talking to each other and that they're communicating with each other. And I think ultimately out here, it is good to see people standing up and people making a difference. I think collectively, you got to identify what the issues are and how you can make some changes. It's been going on for so long. It's not going to just change automatically, but it's baby steps. And I think everything's been kind of brought to light. But I also think that there's people, groups, different people who are trying to breed discourse to try to say, put one person on one side, one person on the other side, and let them fight. So I think the object is, at least on my side, is how can we bring people together? How can we get them to communicate with each other without shouting at each other? And how can we get them to listen? And so, that makes a difference. But it's cool to see young people out there, young and old, out there making a difference. Because I think the reality, I know I'm talking a lot, but I think the reality is that, there are a lot of good people in the world, more than probably the bad people. And, they have a voice. And so we just need to use that power in their voice.
Yeah. What I keep saying is, you keep saying the country is divided, but the people that are divided is a very select few, and the overarching majority, they're blowing them out of the water. And people always say, oh, I don't have a voice, I can never do anything. You're seeing that. You're seeing change, well, slowly but surely is happening. And the biggest change we can do is by everybody voting in the coming months. And I think that's we just got to get started now.
No doubt. There's a freedom that we have in the right to vote. Use that, because at the end, if you look back, you can't say that I didn't vote, but I'm mad about everything. You gotta be the one out there doing something.
Now Kanye West is running for president. I'm like,
that the sad thing is that's where the presidency has become. It's become a farce, right? It's become anybody can run with any agenda, and there used to be a level of respect for that office. I think it's shaken.
So
we'll see.
Yeah, as long maybe I don't know if you have like presidential mixtapes like every inauguration. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't want to think about it.
yeah.
So starting with your football career. So you didn't really have a traditional path in the NFL career. So what was your high school experience like?
So for me, like you said, it wasn't traditional. I had actually dropped out of high school my senior year. Took 6 months off, ended up going back, but you couldn't play, because I dropped out. And
Interesting.
so I think it was my senior year. It was a long time
Yeah.
ago. But because of that, couldn't play my senior year of high school football. I'm trying to figure out how can I get to college, because after I dropped out, for me it was 6 months of loneliness, doubt, depression.
Yeah.
Just to the point of I told people I tried to take my life, it didn't work. You get to the point where you just realize, you're so low. And for me, that's my own personal story, was that, I cried out to God for me. And it felt like God said, you had a purpose and you had a destiny. And sometimes you just need those words. You're supposed to do something and you have a place in life. And so with that, went back to school, didn't play my senior year, met a guy in a gym who told me about a junior college in Oakland,
Oh,
California. Me
cool.
and another guy saved up a little money, saved us some money. First flight ever outside of the state.
Oh, wow.
End up going to this junior college in Oakland, California, who doesn't pay for anything. They're like, we'll try to help you and point you in the right direction. But we played there for 2 years and then got a scholarship to the University of California, Berkeley,
That's awesome.
which, you got one of the top schools from a dropout in high school. And then to get drafted, 12th pick in the first round was pretty amazing, right? So
Yeah.
there is something to that God story.
And going back to Cal, so what did you put? What was it like? Did you have NFL aspirations in high school, and then from when going to junior college to Cal, when did you really put it together, and then when did the NFL really become a reality?
Good question. It wasn't. My goal was to go to school, go to college,
Yeah.
to primarily prove to everybody that I wasn't dumb.
Yeah.
'Cause people think once you drop out of school, or people who don't do well in school, you're dumb,
Yeah.
and it's not necessarily always the reason.
Yeah, Cal Berkeley diploma really says otherwise.
Right.
So,
And so for me, it was going from the Oakland, California, Laney Junior College, to Berkeley. And Berkeley, the reason I went to Berkeley is because there was another great player, a guy named Hardy Nickerson.
yeah.
And Hardy Nickerson, it would have been his senior year and my junior year. And so I figured if all the scouts were looking at him, they would have to look at me, because we both played linebacker position.
Yeah.
And so that, my girlfriend, who's been my wife for 31 years,
That's awesome.
was there also. And so all that kind of led to me staying and going to the University of California, Berkeley. And so, it was an experience of kind of feeling like, anything is possible. And that's kind of what I try to preach. Sometimes I got to hear it for myself, but anything's possible. You just don't know, but there are some principles that you have to apply. Let me look at you. You're doing this podcast, man. Who would have thought, right? But
Yeah.
we're doing stuff.
Yeah, no, it's I figured like I've been doing this like basically most of the pandemic, but I've been doing it after because I feel like I already all this added free time. This whole pandemic giving people an excuse to do nothing. But for some people, you can't do nothing. I'd go crazy if I'm just sitting around doing nothing all day. I'm like, but you got to go. You can't go to the grocery store every day. Can't do. What else are you gonna do? You can exercise. You can watch TV. There's nothing new coming on. There's no sports coming on. I'm watching Korean baseball at 1:00 in the morning. It's crazy. Yeah, no, but yeah.
Well, but the good thing is, it's like during this time, a lot of people, like you say, do nothing.
Yep.
Some people see it as opportunity.
Yes.
To take advantage of it, and that's the key.
Yeah.
It's like, and then they'll look back at you in a few years and say, "Man, this guy was lucky."
Yeah.
And it's not lucky; it's taking advantage of that opportunity.
Absolutely. And so at what point did the NFL become not more of a reality than a possibility?
So in my senior year at Cal, we had some postseason games. So our last game, but it's the last game of the season, we went to Japan and played against Washington State. And I was the most valuable defensive player there. Then I had a postseason game. It was East-West Shrine game. I was most valuable defensive player there. I went to the Senior Bowl, most valuable defensive player there. So I was like, you know what? There may be something to this, right? And so I was thinking, maybe fifth, everybody's saying fifth round, something like that. But then that year they happened to be taking linebackers. The first pick in the draft was a linebacker, Andre Bruce. And so, it just all lined up for me to get drafted. And Phoenix never talked to me. I never knew that they were interested in me. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, you get this phone call and say, "Hey, Kim, you want to be a Cardinal?" I'm like, "Okay." And then you go to Phoenix, they had just moved from St. Louis, so I'm the original Phoenix Cardinal, Arizona. Nobody knew who we were. So we were playing at ASU Stadium. We had about 25,000 fans. Nobody knew who we were. Nobody cared who we were. But that was, I was in the NFL. I was in the pros.
What are you guys? A Pee Wee team? Oh no! Oh, you're playing here? Oh, okay. No.
Basically, yeah, right. They thought we were a baseball team. St. Louis Cardinals? Are you baseball? I'm like, dude, football.
Speaking of that, I can't imagine being in a city like with you have two of the same teams with the same name, different sports. Like you go to the wrong game. How many people went to the wrong game thinking like, "Oh, I'm going to see football. I'm going to see football," and you ended up in the bleachers?
I mean, it's probably crazy, but look,
Yeah.
people find that you find your players, follow them religiously. So it's good.
So you said they never contacted. So what was your draft process like? If they never contacted you, you just kind of found out when they took you.
So so originally I had a couple of teams will say that they're interested. I went to New York. Bill Parcells was there, and he sat me down. He's looking at me and he's like, we like you, but you're too small to be one of our linebackers. We see you more as a third down cover guy because you're not as big. We got big guys. And I was like, I was sitting in the meeting smiling. I was so pissed off. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna show you. and so that was a team that talked to me. And you had a few other teams that seemed like they were interested, but that's the luck of the draw. You don't know who's going to be the team. I was praying it wasn't someplace cold. I hate cold weather, but I got exactly the opposite.
Yeah,
there were some hot times in Arizona.
That's interesting. And then, so what was your first? Have you ever been there, or what was your first experience like when you finally went joined the team?
No, it was there, but for me, I was deadly focused. I mean, for me, coming out of Cal, no one knew who I was. Everybody was kind of like shocked, like, well, who is this guy? And so for me, in my mindset, it was like I want to prove to everybody that I belong on this team, that they got a bargain getting me. So that was kind of the attitude. But when I got there, the Cardinals, they were kind of like the same way. They were like, well, you're not really big enough to be one of our linebackers or a pass rusher. So we're looking at trying to make you a third down cover guy. I was horrible. I mean, guys were just juking me. I mean, I was bad. So in my mind, in practice, every day I would tell the coach, let me go up against your lineman. Let me go up against your big lineman. Let me pass rush. Let me pass rush. And my mindset was I will destroy them every single time, so that there was no doubt that I was a pass rusher. And so ultimately, I ended up becoming a pass rusher.
What were the media saying about you getting drafted there?
It's it was just kind of like it was an unknown. It was who is this guy? Did they waste a pick on him? We don't know anything about him. He came out of Cal. Cal's not a powerhouse school for football. Who he's a junior college guy. No one knows who he is, and so it's kind of that big question mark. And not rightfully so. But you go out and you try to prove yourself and play as hard as possible. And then at the end, the results were that people saw I had a passion for the game, and that's I just tried to play hard and be the best that I could be. And obviously there were great players and coaches that helped me along the way. So it wasn't me; it was a lot of everybody else.
And then from them letting you play linebacker, I think that's like kind of translatable to like people in life that really want to kind of do something, and maybe people are saying, "Oh, you're not the right person." How did you convince them, "Hey, once you let me do this, you're not going to want me to stop"?
Well, so sometimes you have to take on that big task that everyone's saying you don't belong.
Yeah.
You're not that person. Oh, you can never be a chef. You can never be this or that. And so sometimes you got to take it head on and dominate it, and go with a resiliency saying, I will show you this is why I belong. But you have to believe in your own mind and not listen to what anyone else is saying, because the world, most people are going to try to stop you, bring you down, tell you, well, you're not good enough. And they can have good intentions, but they don't see the vision like you see it.
Yeah.
And so, a lot of times for people in life in general, you got to attack it, and you got to believe in it, and you got to give it 100%. And at the end of the day, even if you don't succeed, right? You did the best you could. You learned something from it.
Yeah.
I have a little thing I do on LinkedIn. It's called Life Lessons from the Gym.
Oh, cool.
And I try to use analogies like that. And so, you have a life lesson from the gym would be, first life lesson from the gym is you got to walk into the gym.
Yeah.
Because you can say you want to lose weight, you can talk about it, you can do whatever you want, but the hardest thing sometimes is taking that first step, and then you apply that life lesson to life, right?
Absolutely.
First thing in life is you got to take that first step to do anything. And so, just try to have some fun with it.
Do you remember the first time they gave you the opportunity to say, okay, we're going to see what you can do?
I don't remember exactly. I do remember lining up against their linemen, offensive linemen. It's team drill, and them looking at me saying, "Okay, well, we're gonna let you pass rush," and I destroyed them. They couldn't handle the speed, and everybody's like, "Oh, line up, do it again, do it again." And like they couldn't believe it. Do it again, and you do it again, and they're like, "Oh." And so after a while, they're like, "Well, maybe we have something here." And
Maybe,
yeah.
maybe.
And now you're kind of like, okay, well, here you go. I've been trying to tell you that, but sometimes talk is cheap, and you got to actually go out and prove it.
And then, so I have a question. So, what was instrumental to help you in your rookie season that maybe some of these guys now don't know they're going to need to do to kind of get to that next step, or maybe could help somebody else?
Well, obviously, a lot of people talk about mentors, right?
Right.
There was another guy, there's a guy named Anthony Bell. He was a linebacker, and I was getting destroyed by the tight end. When just lining up, because I really hadn't played over a tight end before, not like the way they wanted me to play.
Yeah.
And he just, it was small adjustments. He had me change my feet from this way to this way, made 100% of difference. So mentorship, get guys or people around you that know more than you do, that care about you. Hard work. I always tell people there are 3 things that'll make you great in football. You can either be an athlete, right? And then you got to learn how to maximize your athletic ability, which means if you go to the gym, you got to push yourself harder than anybody else will push you. You got to be strong. You got to use that ability to maximize it. 2, you can be super smart. Know the plays back and forth. You know it before the person knows it. And so they're like, that guy is undersized, but how did he get to that tackle? How did he make this? Because you know the game so well. Yeah. Or 3 is that you have a lot of heart. And that you'll do whatever it takes to make the thing. If the play is running and some guy's escaping down the field, you're doing everything you can to chase him down and to get him down at the 1-yard line. If you have one of those and you learn how to maximize them, then you can be great on your own team, right? You got 2 of them and you maximize and you become a Pro Bowler and you start going around. You get all 3, the majority of those people become Hall of Famers. And so it's learning to take whatever ability you have out of those 3 and then push it to the max that you can push it. That's the advice I would give people.
How many of those 3 does Chase Young have?
Who?
That's Chase Young. How many does he
From
have?
what I know, all 3. Yeah. And then, sometimes they're like their coaching schemes. Yeah. I've seen players with great ability, great everything, and you get coaches that destroy them. And so that's the unfortunate part, and nobody really points out the coaches. No. They look at the players. No. Yeah. But I've seen some coaches mess up guys.
Definitely.
That, so. And, the lifestyle. You get in this lifestyle, and you go from where, in college you may have been the man, but now in the pros, you're getting hit in 1,000 different ways. Yeah. And your lifestyle, you got to keep that in check too. So hopefully, you get good people around you.
Yeah. And speaking of Chase Young, so how did your move to the Redskins come in? Because you spent some time in Arizona, but then what made you want to come to DC?
So my contract was up with the Cardinals. I wanted to stay with the Cardinals, but your contract is up, right? Yeah. And so you go out and you're like, well, I got to be sensible, shop the market, see what's out there. The Redskins called and they're like, come down for a visit, and then they offered me a contract and said, here's what we want. I said, well, I got to go back to talk to the Cardinals and see if they want to match it or what. They're like, if you leave, it's off the table.
Really?
So then you get to the position where you say, well, if I go back and the Cardinals say, well, I don't believe they offered that contract, and then now suddenly that contract's off the table and the Cardinals can lowball you. Or you got to make a decision and say, I'm going to go here and stick with it. And then you look at DC was a bigger market. It had all the stuff. And so coming to DC was, I wouldn't say a no-brainer, but it worked out. And, because of that, you got a lot more publicity. I think I played just as hard, if not harder, in Arizona, but you get more recognition. So I ended up going to the Pro Bowl, those 4 times. And there you go.
And speaking of the Skins, with all the stuff going on now, was there any talk then of maybe why are we calling ourselves this? Maybe this name's a little offensive? Never.
You know what? It's a whole different environment now. Yeah. And people are and rightfully so. I guess it's the reckoning of things in the past that were normal to everyone. But now all of a sudden it's like we're shining a light on it and saying, oh,
Yeah.
You know what? Okay, I got it. That may
Yeah.
be offensive, or that may be wrong. And so it's a different world right now, and we have to understand it.
Yeah.
But I hadn't talked to anyone yet. A lot of people have asked me to talk about the Redskins thing, but I will say, when I was with the Cardinals, I was number 56. I come to the Redskins. There was another guy who had number 56. And he's like, "I'll sell it to you." And I'm like, "I'm not going to buy the jersey." I'm like, "I'll take number 57 and I'll make the name myself. And I'll
Yeah.
have everybody who wants to wear the jersey." And I think that could be the same thing to be
Yeah.
said for a team, right? You may change the name, but it's what's inside, what the team is going to do with the name that makes a big difference. So
If
I
if,
don't
you,
know.
if they said, Ken, we want you to choose the name, what will be your pick?
I've been trying to think of that. There's I don't know. I think someone's throwing around the Washington Warriors and all that stuff, but it's right now the team's not based in Washington anymore. So I don't even know what the name of the team would be. And you got to look at it from an owner's position.
Yeah.
For him, I'm sure he's looking at it saying, if I change it, there's going to be I'm gonna lose a lot in merchandising, and I'm gonna lose a
I think
lot in
there's more
all.
merchandising because I think everybody would be buying new stuff.
I was gonna say that. So there could be right now. This
Yeah.
is an opportunity, but with the whole COVID, you don't know.
Yeah,
But
that's
but you
true.
got a new coach, you got a new, you got all these beast up players on the team. This could be a prime opportunity, like we talked about with opportunity in the
Yeah.
midst of things. Could be a prime opportunity to have growth by saying, I'm going to change this because and it just depends on how you spend it. But this could be a great opportunity to change it and actually make a profit off of it.
Yeah. Yeah. I heard Red Tails is getting a lot of steam. I kind of like that a lot.
Washington Red Tails.
I kind of, yeah.
That's kind of cool. Yeah, I like that.
The monuments, I kind of like that'd be interesting. That was my pick.
You
I
know
also,
what? That would actually be. That would definitely be interesting.
yeah.
Actually, I mean, I'm thinking as we're talking, but yeah,
Yeah.
that would actually be cool because
Yeah.
it could represent all the monuments,
Yeah.
and it could be a great
Yeah.
it could be a great pull for the
You
team
could do
as
some
far as marketing.
insane, awesome jerseys. It'd be
Yeah,
wild. No, yeah, it's just wild. And then I was thinking like you could do the Beltway, but that would be horrible. The Washington Beltway would not be a good name for a football team. Yeah,
yeah,
and
no,
then
right.
and then so speaking of DC, so how did do you think that you 4 straight Pro Bowls? Do you think it was just the more eyes on you that people are like, oh, this dude's got it, rather than you're in Arizona, or how did you put it
No,
all
no,
together?
no. So when I got here, there's two things. One, like there were great players in Arizona, but when I got here, there's an offensive lineman, Jim Lachey. Uh, I would go against him all the time. He would beat me up, throw me to the ground, and then he would tell me why he was able to do it, how he was doing it. So you learn a lot from guys. You go against the best, you become better.
Yeah.
Then there were guys like Monty Coleman who would, inspire me. A guy named Tim Johnson who would I'd come off the field and they'd be like, "Ken, you're doing great, but you need to do this, and maybe you should look at that." And they would try to work with me. And so there's a lot of mentorship, and that's what really I think helped me get to the first Pro Bowl. And then once people kind of recognize you, then if your play is consistent, then you can start making other Pro Bowls.
Oh, cool. And then when did you realize like, okay, like I'm kind of like football is behind me, because you come on 4 straight Pro Bowls and then you kind of hung it up. What prompted
Because
that?
I couldn't walk to my mailbox. I
That's a
mean,
good reason. That's a
yeah,
good reason.
my leg was pretty messed up, and I had at the time always believed in my head that if I can't go 100%, then it's time to let it go.
Yeah.
Looking back, I'd be like, I can live through another year. It'll be another year of the contract, right? But at that time, I was kind of like, if I can't go 100%, then it's time to let it go. And I couldn't, um, you know, we couldn't really identify what exactly was wrong with my knee.
Oh,
And
interesting.
so, I thought it was just time to let it go.
Yeah. And then, so what was it like being inducted into the Ring of Honor?
It was cool because you look at it as this kid, this dropout, and you look at it and you say, God, I'm here. I'm doing this Ring of Fame, and I got my kids with me, and I got my wife with me, and I'm saying that they consider me one of their great players. You can
Yeah.
never take that away. Out of all these names that people are looking at and saying, oh, I love this guy, and I love that guy, and I love that guy, and then to know your name is up there as part of it.
Yeah.
How
That's
cool is
awesome.
that, right?
Yeah.
It's very cool. So it's a milestone. It's a good thing. Hall of Fame would be great. On my other side, my
Yeah.
goal is to win an Oscar
Oh, cool.
and to write a plays and do different things like that. So more on the creative side, but
Yeah.
on the football side, it's pretty cool being good known locally.
Yeah, and then speaking of Oscar and the creative side, so since your football was no longer really taking a time commitment, were you able to just maximize your time and just kind of just divulge into that?
No, you know what? It's I mean, unfortunately, probably more so. Like a lot of players, once you stop, you don't know. You've been to this is your mountaintop. This
Yeah.
if you don't have a plan beyond that, you're kind of like, ugh. And for me, it was actually kind of weird. It was that because I had dropped out of high school, in my mind, I said I would never quit again. When I got hurt, when my season was over with, it felt like I quit.
Mm.
And so I was actually kind of almost in hiding, depression afterwards for several years. And so I didn't know what to do, didn't step out to do anything, and was just kind of really down. I would dabble in a little bit of here, dabble in a little bit of there. And so it just took a few years ago to really, I mean, this is 20 years, but a few years ago to kind of really start finding what I've been doing all along, which was writing.
Yeah.
To go back to it, so quick story short, with the book, the kids' book with Terry Crews, the book was called "Come Find Me," and so I was reading the Bible, and there's a verse in Exodus 4:2. God was talking to Moses, and he said, "What's in your hands?" And then Moses said, "The staff." And for me, when I was reading it, it felt like God was saying to me, "What's in your hands?" And I was like, I got this story that's been sitting on my computer for
Cool.
21 years.
Wow.
Let me call up Terry and tell him I'm just going to do something because it'll be good to give away to kids.
Yeah.
He's like, I love it. Let's do this thing. I'll pay for everything. Let's make this a great book. And lo and behold, we were able to get the book out. We have augmented reality that's associated with the book. So if you put your camera over the pictures, it comes alive on your phone.
Oh, cool. That's awesome.
And so, that was kind of the first step of saying, use the gifts that you have,
Yeah.
and so I have a podcast now called What's in
That's
Your Hands.
awesome.
And that's kind of my thing right now is to say, what gifts do we have and how can we use them?
And then speaking of your friendship with Terry, so he was on the scene. Is that how you guys met, or did you guys know each other before that?
Yeah, that's how we met. Was playing football. He was a linebacker. He was backing me up actually, and so it's a good dude. Like what you
Yeah.
see on TV, what the characters and the roles that he plays. That's who he is. He's a really nice guy, and so we just we hit it off. We were
That's
both
awesome.
kind of on the creative side, but whereas his career in football was kind of here.
Yeah.
His entertainment's way up here. My
Yeah.
career of football now is over with, and I'm like here, and I'm saying, "Hey, dude, I'll do a small role with you."
Yeah. Yeah.
And he's always been willing to help in every way.
That's
But I
awesome.
think this is a journey. As we remain friends,
Yeah.
it's a
That's so
journey
cool.
that we each take on our own.
What's your favorite role he's ever done?
Well, you know what? It's like me and my wife were talking the other day. The song "White Chicks" when it was
Yes, I was going to
singing,
ask you about that.
making
Yeah.
my way downtown. I mean, I couldn't picture anybody else
No.
doing that role,
No.
right? And
No.
there's so many things that he's done that it fits just him. For everybody hates Chris. You
I
needed
forgot he was in. I forgot he
yeah,
was in that.
right. And you needed dad roles.
Yeah.
For the next generation, people need to see a dad role. It was another show called "Are We There Yet?" He did
Yeah.
that, and he's done the Expendables, and some of these things you look at and you say, "Wow, this is cool."
Yeah.
But his story is pretty amazing in his journey also. So we all got a stories. Everyone has a story. You have a story,
Yeah.
and how you got to doing this, and so
Yeah.
it's kind of cool.
Does he ever call you after Brooklyn Nine-Nine to say, "Hey, did you watch? Did you see the episode tonight?" Or
No, but I know when it first started, he had 3 script offers. One was Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and there were 2 other shows.
really? I
And
don't
he
know.
was kind of trying to decide, which one should I pick? Which one should I pick?
Yeah.
And he ended up picking Brooklyn Nine-Nine,
Oh,
and it's been
cool.
a massive success. So, it just goes to show you don't know.
No.
He doesn't call him brag about stuff. We usually when we talk to each other, we just joke around
Yeah.
for the most part because it's kind of like, at least for me, I think it's release for him. He doesn't
Yeah.
have to worry about somebody wanting something or
No.
trying to get something from him. We just boys
Yeah.
and
That's awesome.
try to have some fun.
Do you guys watch America's Got Talent every Tuesday too? Just see, all right, what's he gonna do?
I've seen him enough. I'll glance, I'll look at it some,
Yeah.
and he does a great. It's a perfect fit for him.
It's
I
amazing.
mean,
Yeah.
his personality.
Yeah.
It's a perfect fit for him, and they treat him well. He treats them well. So I'm happy for him. I think it's good, but it's like when you see your boy, you're like, this is great, but see, I've seen you before.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Let me see what's on ESPN
yeah,
next.
yeah, yeah. Like I'm a flipper anyhow, so I
Yeah.
just gotta go through all the
And,
channels.
and then for the Skins for this year, assuming there's a season, fingers crossed there's a
Right,
season.
right.
How do you like the fit of Ron Rivera? How do you like some of the added parts? What do you want to see in 2020?
Well, I mean, that's kind of, as we were talking, this is the perfect year for Snyder because he has a coach that I think in the past, the coaches were kind of beholden
Yeah,
to Snyder, right?
yeah,
You got Norv Turner, who's like, this is my first, you giving me my
yeah,
first chance to be a coach. You
yeah,
get, some other coaches, this is my first chance or this is my redo chance.
yeah,
And so everybody's kind of beholden to him. You got
yeah,
a guy now who's like, look, either you want me or you don't,
yeah,
but I'm here to win. And if I win, or if we do this thing, you're going to do it my way.
yeah,
There's going to be no in betweens. There's going to be no favoritism. This is my way. So, when he first got here, he cleaned out some of the stuff,
yeah,
the ping pong tables and all that. Like, let's make this a real football team. And I think the team was lacking discipline.
yeah,
And now they've built up a really good defense. I think a dominant defense that could be a dominant defense.
yeah,
And so, with dominant defense, your offense could be so-so and you can win games.
yeah,
So they have the talent. I think football is 90% mental. Who wants it the most? Who
yeah.
knows their plays? Who can execute? Everybody has great athletes on their team, but I think now the attitude is coming as part of the team, and that should be exciting.
And then speaking of attitude, what do you like the acquisition of Thomas Davis? I feel like he's perfect for this locker room.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think it's great. So it's completing the picture, and that's
Yeah,
why you get excited about this. You get excited about this year. You hope there is a year
yeah,
because this is the year
yeah,
that could really change the Washington team, whichever
yeah.
how you call it. This could
We
change
don't know what's gonna be yet, so
the outcome. And good teams go up, good teams go down. There was a
yep.
time when New England was like the laughing stock, right? And
Yeah.
so now all of a sudden they're
A
all
little bit
world.
different now. Yeah, that's
So
interesting. That's
never
wild.
know.
And I got one last question for you.
Sure.
So, what's been the most enjoyable thing you've done over this pandemic? Everybody's talking about how it's been a very downtime, it's very depressing time. But I feel like some people maybe they find something themselves, something that they've never really had interest in. And they're like, oh, I like doing that. I'm gonna keep doing that. What's something for you that you've really found an interest in that you really enjoyed?
Well, it's I mean, one, it's actually been cool. Like you hear about couples, and at home with their spouses and they're hating each other. But me and my wife, we've done really well. We've
Oh,
gotten
cool.
together. But a cool thing is, one of the movies that I wrote, um, I wrote it. It's about a sports game in space,
Oh,
and so I've been looking at it as just a movie.
yeah,
But now in my mind, I'm believing it could be a whole new sports game, like a video game, but people can play it as their avatar. And this is, like as we talk about
yeah,
opportunities,
yeah,
this may be a great opportunity to start a whole new sports league.
yeah.
And so I'm kind of excited to see where they'll take me. But that's my creative mind.
You finally found the location of the next Skin Stadium before everybody else. It's not
Yeah,
it's not in
yeah, right.
Loudon. It's not in Landover. It's on Mars.
But
No.
you know what? It's. I mean, it seems silly, right? But we're just like they're testing things now, and they're
Oh
starting to
yeah,
go to space.
yeah.
It's like the
I'm
first
in.
people when they first got in the first ships coming
Yeah,
to America or
yeah,
coming wherever. It's exploratory, but then once you get there, there's that. What are we gonna do with the
yeah,
time we have other than working? We need something to entertain ourselves, and so
yeah.
create a game.
Yeah, I was asking my father a couple weeks ago. I was saying, like, if I would have told you 30 years ago you'd be able to do FaceTime on a
Right.
mobile phone and talk to somebody else and see them, he'd say, I think you're crazy. So nothing's really crazy anymore. You never know what's going to happen. So,
I grew up watching Star Trek, so
yay,
I was a
yay,
Spock guy,
yeah. Well, this is,
original Star Trek.
yeah. Well, this has been awesome. So, for people that want to find your books, how can they find them? And also, how can they find your podcast and you on social media?
So the podcast is What's in Your Hands, and it's on Spotify,
Oh, cool. I'll
it's
put a
on
link in here for
Apple,
you.
and then for the book, it's comefindmebook.com, and then you'll see Terry Crews and see that. So that's the book. I have some other ones coming out. There's one we did called Life in the Fridge
Oh, cool.
when chocolate milk moved in, talk about racism,
Yeah,
different
that's
things
awesome.
like that. I'm doing one for a credit union,
Oh, cool.
like a bank, and so about finance, because I think there's an area of finance that we aren't taught necessarily.
No, yeah.
I know growing up, I wasn't taught it.
No.
You didn't see your parents doing it. You didn't learn it. And if you don't learn it, all of a sudden you become, even if you become this big football player,
Yeah.
if you haven't developed those habits or
No.
skill sets,
No.
you know, as much as you make, you find a
Yeah.
way to lose, right? And so, you know, if I can plant some seeds early on, then it'd be great.
Yeah, they didn't teach us anything about financing
You
in
don't teach it,
college.
right?
No. They
Yeah.
teach you trigonometry, which is very helpful in life, but
Right,
not
right,
about
right,
things
right.
you're
You
gonna
don't
need
know
when
what.
you're 18. So
But you know, the whole finance thing, you don't think about it, but then all of a sudden, once you get out,
yeah.
your whole life is based on learning to, you know,
Yeah.
save, to spend, to do
Yeah.
what. Unless you have a job that's going to constantly keep generating income for you, it's
Yeah.
tough. A lot of
Yeah.
people are
Yeah.
having to reinvent themselves now.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm very concerned about what happens with when the CARES Act runs out at the end of the month, and when people are getting evicted, and that moratorium is ending, and when the extended unemployment, not just because there's a date set doesn't mean people can go back to work. So
Yeah.
I'm very interested to see what that is. But then speaking of that, yeah, like do we, like, it's like a kid in school. Do we need to learn about taxes and filling out W-2s? No. Cosine. Remember cosine. We got to remember cosine. So
Right.
it's wild. But this has been a ton of fun. Thank you so much again for chatting for a
No,
few
thank
minutes.
you. You're doing a great
Absolutely.
job.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much. And I'll definitely stay in touch. And I'll redirect everybody to your books and your website and your podcast. And I'm glad it's awesome. But this has been a ton of fun.
Appreciate it. Thank you for having me. You're doing a great job. Keep it up, man.